All right, welcome to week 3 of Principles of Management. We're going to just start right in on our class. Nobody has any questions. I have everyone that's attending written down for their attendance, but if someone comes in, I may have to stop and write them down. So tonight's chapters that we're covering chapters 7, 12, and 16. Chapter 7 is about innovation and change. 12 is about managing individuals, and managing individuals and a diverse workforce. And 16 is about control. All three of these lessons are great real-life scenario lessons that you get to deal with in the real world. So they're all great chapters to discuss tonight. If you have gone on last week, I guess I didn't change the expiration date for the live lecture submission week 2. I'll get that updated, but you can still submit your stuff for last week and get credit on that, even though it shows that it's expired. And that's my fault. I just missed updating that date. Whenever a class starts, I have to literally go into each and every assignment and make sure that the expiration date is correct, and I missed that one. I think I got all of week 3 up. After class tonight, I'll go through and check through the dates again. If you come up on something that shows that it is expired or past due, I taught this class 2 classes ago, so it may have an expiration date of January or December. So just let me know. I'll update that, and my apologies for that delay. Let's see. If you haven't seen discussion 3.1, if it's in your own words, explain why refusing to change can lead to organizational decline. We're going to talk a lot about change in the workplace tonight. Research to find a company in your core area of study that experienced an organizational decline. Tell the class about the situation. And then study, evaluate, and give an example of what could have been done to prevent the organizational decline. Like I asked in previous discussions, if you will list it out, step 1, step 2, step 3, so I can grade it accordingly. And then here's the grading rubric for that. The next assignment 3.1, is a matching quiz. Assignment 3.3 is an interview. And then this 3.2, again, you see it has the step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, and 5. Pretend that you have just been promoted to the district manager in your core industry. There are 5 stores in your new district, and those 5 stores happen to have the lowest, let me move this so I can see, lowest sales by volume. You have 5 store managers directly reporting to you, and each of them have 1 in 5 of the personality dimensions. Only 1 dimension per store manager, and you may not use the same one twice. You have decided to visit each of your store managers to understand them as a person and figure out what you can to help them be successful in their store. And then there's the different steps. It's going to go over each of those types of managers, and if you have any questions on that, let me know. Make sure you're writing it out, because as you can see, as step 1 through 5, as you can see, I grade it by each step. So, and then there's the spelling and grammar, total of 50 points. And someone just logged in. Let me write them down. Next, outside of those 3 assignments, the discussion, if you're not attending the live lecture tonight, you're watching this recorded, you'll do the live lecture submission. I need to make sure that that date is updated. And then there's the quiz for the week. If you have any questions, let me know. If you are struggling through class, or you have questions, or there's something you do not understand, I've said it before, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that I am more than happy to do a one-on-one Zoom lesson, meet you at the school, do some tutoring, whatever you need. I want everyone to be successful. I want everyone to do well. So I'm here if you need me, if you have questions. Sometimes I'm not super fast about responding, but I do try to be pretty quick. So reach out if you have questions or need help, and I'll be here. So just jumping right in, chapter 7, innovation and change. And tonight I'll utilize a lot of examples from working at the bank, because I worked at a company during my banking career that was really big on innovation and change and being ahead of the curve and being the first and leading the way in innovation. So I have a lot of great examples to utilize from that company that I'll go over tonight. As always, I'm going to skip over the learning outcomes. Why does innovation matter? So technology cycle begins with the birth of new technology and ends with that technology when that technology reaches its limits and is replaced by newer, better technology. So you see this every day. Whenever one great example would be going back to using my banking experience. In banking, back in the olden days, they would take your signature card, fill it all out by paper, go, and everything would be done on paper. But with technology came better and more efficient ways to keep track of your monies and to do withdrawals and to pull up your signature card electronically. So if you were going to go looking for a bank and you came across a small town bank, I live in a little town called Beggs. So say I went down to Beggs and the bank downtown, they were like, we pull your signature card and we do it all by hand and we don't use computers. That's going to concern me because I want to do online deposits. I want to use my app to see what my balance is. Do they even have debit cards? So you want to make sure that you're staying with the change, the technology cycle. Are you going to find a bank nowadays that's going to do everything by hand? Probably not, but that's just trying to give you an example. With the technology change more recently, doing the cards on your phone, being able to do that, Apple Pay, doing your wallet on your phone, paying. I went to Academy just this last week and I was getting some stuff and I went to check out, and one of the methods of payment was my PayPal account. And so that was really interesting to me. So I used my PayPal because I just wanted to see what it was like. So that's one way that Academy is using technology and offering other ways for people to pay. Something you may or may not know, it's sometimes hard for people to get a checking account if they've had charge-offs or just gone through a rough patch in their life. And so PayPal offers people who aren't able to get bank accounts sometimes a way to bank. And so that's really neat that you can check out with PayPal at some stores now. I also had the option to email myself the receipt versus trying to keep track of the receipt in my wallet. So that was neat. So that's one way that technology, they're trying to keep up with the times and be ahead of the curve. The S-curve pattern of innovation, characterized by slow initial progress, then rapid progress. So slow progress, again, as a technology matures and reaches its limits, kind of testing the waters, seeing how things work out once the ball gets rolling, really start a rapid progression. So that's the S-curve pattern of innovation. It occurs when there are major advances in the knowledge, tools, and techniques of a field. Another reason this might happen is when someone starts out on a venture or a company starts out on a venture and they're testing the waters and not everybody's on board. It's up to them to make advancements in the technology. And once people start onboarding, and we kind of talked about it last month, the more people in a discussion or in a group, the more likely it is to have better input because you have so many different people giving that input. Same thing with this. As more companies on board or start utilizing this innovation or this technology, they're going to be able to provide better technology and better examples on. Sorry, I have someone checking in and I'm writing them down. They'll help you to advance in your technology. If you are just logging in, make sure you're muted. I've been trying to go through and mute everybody, but I'm just trying to keep everything quiet so we can hear the lecture. So why does innovation matter? And kind of like I talked about earlier, if I'm not going to go downtown Beggs, Oklahoma and find a bank that is not trying to be innovative and up with the times, though we're in a small town, you have to change and you have to be up with what's going on around you, and you have to try to at least be where everybody else is. Or you're going to get left behind. Innovation streams patterns of innovation over time that can create sustainable competitive advantage, begins with technological discontinuity, followed by discontinuous change, pursued by dominant design, and leads to incremental change. Does someone have a question? If you could mute your deal, it looks like everyone's muted, but I did hear something. So if you have a question, definitely chime in and let me know. I can't always see the chat box without going and looking for it. So if you do have a question or I am cutting out, you can chime in and let me know. So innovation is important. You have to be willing to change and to be what the customer base wants. Methods to effectively managing innovation: managing sources of innovation, formation of creative work environments. Creative work environments are workplace cultures in which workers perceive that the new ideas are welcomed, valued, and encouraged. So change is inevitable and it's going to happen, and not all change is good, but change is usually good, especially if you're improving a process or saving money, making processes easier. So whenever I worked in the banking industry, sometimes, so have you ever gone online banking and your whole online banking system is different, and so now you're learning a new process and you're trying to figure it out, and it's difficult, and you call the bank and the bank is like, yeah, the teller's like, yeah, we know it changed. And so now you're even more discouraged because the banker doesn't even like the new service. So that's where companies really need to focus whenever they're trying to roll out a new product or they're trying to initiate change, is to onboard their employees and to make it exciting and to make them understand the new products and how they're going to benefit the company. That's probably the most important thing, is making sure that they understand why the change is coming so they can educate the customers. So if you can get your customers on board, let them know the value of this change of innovation, of why we want to progress, and get them excited about it, that'll help them onboard customers or whoever you're trying to onboard to get them to utilize this product. So if this new online banking rolled out and I called the teller and I was like, hey, I don't get it, I don't like it. And they're like, you know what? Once you get over it, it's going to be great. You're going to be able to do this, this, and this, and you're going to save time on this, and it's going to add value to your life because of this. You're going to think twice about, like, hey, maybe it isn't so bad. So it's all about perception and onboarding and just willing to roll with the punches. Creation of flow experiences. Flow, psychological state of effortlessness. People become completely absorbed in what they are doing, and time spent to pass quickly, or seems to pass quickly. So here, this is all components of creative work environments. And to have a creative work environment, you need organizational encouragement, in which I explained earlier about onboarding people. Supervisory encouragement. So if the teller's supervisor is like, yeah, another change, here we go, that teller is not going to be very excited about this change. So you need your frontline supervisors and managers need to be on board to onboard the employees who are talking to the customers. Work group encouragement, freedom, lack of organizational impediments, and challenging work. So you can refer back to this exhibit if you need to. Methods to effectively manage innovation. Experiential approach, managing innovation during discontinuous change. Assumes innovation occurs within a highly uncertain environment. Uses intuition, flexible options, and hands-on experience. Reduces uncertainty and accelerates learning and understanding. Aspects as design, iterations, testing, milestones, malfunction teams, and powerful leaders. Managing change. Change forces, produces differences in the form, quality, and condition of an organization over time. Resistance forces support the existing conditions in organizations. Resistance to change results from self-interest, misunderstanding, and distrust, and general intolerance for change. So we all know someone out there that is resistant to change and is stuck in their old ways. And sometimes those are if you can onboard that group of people, you're doing pretty good. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Managing organizational change is a basic process of unfreezing, which is getting the people affected to change to believe that change is needed. So going back to a few minutes ago when I said You want to get people excited about it, want to onboard them. People have to understand why the change is beneficial and how it's going to benefit them. So is it going to make them money? Is it going to save them time? Is it going to, what is the benefit to them? To onboard them, they're going to need to know that. Change intervention, process used to get workers and managers to change their behaviors and work practices. And refreezing, supporting and reinforcing new changes so that they stick. So you can't implement a change, dabble in it for a little bit, and then go back. So you have to go with it, stick with it, and proceed. Methods to managing resistance to change is education, communication, participation, negotiation, and top management support. Oh, and coercion. So it's just repeating the same thing that I said earlier. You have to onboard them, let them understand what's going on, why the change is necessary, which is part of the communication. You have to get their participation. And one thing that we really, really don't touch on here is you have to be willing to change yourself. So if you implement something and it's not working out, or it could be better, you have to look for that feedback and be willing to improve further. So that's really important as well. What not to do when leading change: not establishing a great enough sense of urgency, not creating a powerful enough coalition, lack of a vision, and under-communicating the vision by a factor of 10. Change tools and techniques: result-driven change created quickly by focusing on the measurement and improvement of results. General Electric workout, 3-day meeting in which managers and employees generate and act on solutions to specific business problems. Organizational development, philosophy, and collection of planned change interventions designed to improve an organization's long-term health and performance. So there's the summary. A change is going to happen, and it's easier to be successful with said change as long as you are communicating, onboarding people, and making sure that they understand the importance of the change. So moving right along, chapter 12, managing individuals in a diverse workforce. Of the 3 chapters we'll cover tonight, this is probably the one that I like the most. I am a huge fan of people. I'm a people person. I really like to work with people. I like to work for people. And so I enjoy chapters that talk about the importance of people. So here we go. Diversity is a variety of demographic, cultural, and personal differences among an organization's employees and customers. It's not an affirmative action. Affirmative action is purposeful steps taken by an organization to create employment opportunities for minorities and women. So when I worked at Enterprise, as in the rent-a-car place, I worked at their headquarters here in Tulsa in their accounts receivable department. And they created a whole group for the company that it was all about diversity. And in this group, the managers would promote or would suggest people to be on the committee. And I was on that committee, and we would promote diversity, and we would highlight different groups of people and different types of backgrounds, and we would highlight that. So if we had someone that was working who was from Australia or who was from China who was over here in the US, we may do some kind of potluck or something that centered around something that was around their culture. And so that just kind of opened up our eyes to let us know what was different and what was available out there that isn't here in our normal everyday routine. Another thing that Enterprise did was they did a I wouldn't call it a competition, but they sent out their little Enterprise car on a coloring sheet, and they sent it out all around the world to all of our enterprises, and they said, we want you to color this sheet as if it were in your area. And we didn't send like one to the US. I mean, we sent it around different parts of the country as well. So maybe one in, maybe they had it in New York, one in Texas. I mean, it was all around the U.S., all around the world. And it was really interesting when those drawings came back in, because if it were in Australia, I think the Australia one had a kangaroo in the background. If it was in Texas, maybe they had, I mean, it was just really interesting to see what different parts of the world, what they put in their background on these coloring sheets. And I know it sounds ridiculous and it sounds goofy, but it actually was a very interesting example of diversity that we had with that company, because you got to see everyone's ideas of around the world. And I don't know if you've ever seen, has anyone ever seen where they send a picture of just a plain person and they said, hey, we want you to make this the ideal girl for your demographic, your area. And some places they have the big winged eyeliners, and sometimes they would change their body type, and sometimes they would be skinny and sometimes they would be thicker. And it was just really interesting to see everyone's perspective around the world. And I kind of got off topic. It's just diversity. People are different everywhere, and you have diversity. Even in my house, we have a diverse group of, we all have different personalities. At my workplace, we're even more diverse, and the bigger and bigger place you are, or more people around, the more diverse you're going to be. And everyone brings a lot of great history to the table and a lot of experience. And one thing that I had pointed out during our diversity committee is, sometimes you can grow up next door to someone and be totally different than them, whether you're adopted, whether you grew up with two parents in the home. I mean, I grew up with just my mom in the home, so I have a strong, I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody. That's what makes me different, and I'm a real go-getter because of that, and that's what makes me me, because my mom, she instilled that in me. So it's just interesting to see how different people are and what makes them who they are because of their history and their diversity. Surface level diversity, differences that are observable, typically unchangeable and easy to measure. So age, sex, race, ethnicity, and physical disabilities. And whenever someone says diversity, this is probably the first thing that someone thinks of. Hey, we got to make sure we have enough of males and enough females and of this race and of this physical disability and age. But it's much deeper than the surface level. Challenges faced by managers is age discrimination, treating people differently because of their age, and sex discrimination, treating people differently because of their sex. And it's something you really have to watch out for in the workplace, because you can get sued for it. So that's one reason that this chapter is so important, is because you want to make sure you're being diverse, and you want to make sure that you're being sensitive to these surface level diversities, because it can get you in a lot of trouble. And you can say all day, I don't want it. I don't see age, and I don't see sex, and I don't discriminate. But you can't just say it. You have to act on that way as well. So that's really important. And I meant to scroll down a little bit, and I jumped pages. I think this was the next page. My apologies. So the glass ceiling, it's an invisible barrier that prevents women and minorities from advancing to the top jobs in the organization. Racial and ethnic discrimination, treating people differently because of their race or their ethnicity. And disability discrimination, treating people differently because of their disabilities. One thing I will say is sometimes you can be have issues with the disability discrimination and not intend to be discriminating. Whenever you're trying to be overly helpful because someone has a disability, sometimes that is discrimination. So you have to really be careful you have to be careful the way that you approach a situation in all of these topics. Let's see. Differences that can be learned only through, this is deep level diversity instead of skin deep. Differences that can be learned only through extended interactions with others, personalities, attitudes, beliefs, and values. So that's kind of my deep level diversity would be, I was, my belief is I can do it on my own. I got this without relying on anybody else, because I grew up in a single family, single mother home, and those are my values, and I'm a that's deep level. Recognizing leads to less prejudice, discrimination, and conflict in the workplace, results in better social integration. The big 5 personality dimensions is extroversion, a degree to which someone is active, assertive, gregarious, sociable, talkative, and energized by others. Emotional stability, degree to which someone is not angry, depressed, anxious, emotional, insecure, or excitable. Agreeableness, degree to which someone is cooperative, polite, flexible, forgiving, good-natured, tolerant, and trusting. Conscientious, that's a hard one. Degree to which someone is organized, hardworking, responsible, persevering, and achievement-oriented. Openness to experience, degree to which someone is curious, broad-minded, and open to new ideas, things, and experiences. Diversity paradigm, I can't even say it. I am not great at some of these words, so my apologies in advance. Discrimination and fairness, focus on equal opportunity, fair treatment, recruitment of minorities, and strict compliance with the equal employment opportunity laws. Access to see, and there's easy words, you say it every day. Legitimacy, focus on the acceptance and celebration of differences. Ensures the diversity within a company matches the diversity among primary stakeholders. Learning and effectiveness focuses on integrated deep-level diversity differences. So the personalities, attitudes, beliefs, and values that I talked about 2 slides ago. Consistent with achieving organizational plurality. Let's see. Paradigms. Thank you, Michael. Consistent with achieving organizational plurality. Members contribute to maximize benefits to organization. Members are not segmented based on their membership in a particular group. So I'm sure a lot of you have probably dealt with the diversity in the workplace. And so that's what makes this chapter so interesting, is you actually get to see this, whether it's in class or in the workplace, or it's really interesting to me, the diversity chapter. Diversity principles, carefully and faithfully following and enforcing federal and state laws regarding equal opportunity employment. Treat group differences as important but not special. And this is kind of where I talked earlier about the when someone has a disability and trying to be helpful but not being over helpful, because then you're back to being discriminant, because you're providing special treatment that maybe they don't appreciate. They don't want to be singled out. They don't want that extra attention to point out and to reiterate that they have this disability. Find the common ground. Tailor opportunities to individuals, not groups. So everyone's different. You have to make sure that you're meeting the needs of individuals. Maintain high standards. Solicit negative as well as positive feedback. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, you have to get that feedback and be willing to change, and willing to improve. Set high but realistic goals. Diversity training and practices. Skills-based diversity training teaches employees the practical skills they need for managing a diverse workforce. Flexibility and adaptability, negotiation and problem solving, conflict resolution. Can everyone say hi to Brianna's little one? Hi. Welcome to class. Diversity training and practices, awareness training, raises employees' awareness of diversity issues, challenging challenges underlying assumptions or stereotypes employees may or have about others. Whenever I was talking earlier about working at Enterprise and having the committee where we brought awareness of the diversity in our workplace and what people had to offer and the interesting facts about other people different from us. And what I say from us is me, different from you, different from people that are different from us, from yourself. It kind of raises your awareness and it expands your horizons of what's out there and what people have to offer. And it's interesting to learn about people's history and what makes them them. So I really highly encourage everyone to, just kind of learn about the people around you, especially if they are from a different place than you are, if they come from a different part of the country, different part of the world. It's really interesting to see what it's like, their history. Maybe kind of off topic, but kind of on topic today, we invited someone to church, and I go to Faith Church in Glenpool, and it's not a mega church, but it's not a little church. We have the preacher there, and we live stream from church, and I invited someone to attend church with us this morning who comes from the little bitty Beggs Church here in town, and so it was kind of a different experience for him this morning. Though, we interact every day, and we actually work on the board together with the Little League. We interact with each other. We talk all the time. His experiences in the church is totally different than my experiences in the church. And so we were talking about it today, and about I go to more of a contemporary setting where it's the lights and the live band, and they're singing songs that they sing on the radio. They're all Christian songs, but it was absolutely different than how he was brought up and how he perceived, going to church. And so that's what makes us as different. There's a lot of things that makes us different, but it was interesting hearing what he sees as a church experience versus what church experience we gave him this morning. So it's interesting to step outside the box and to see what's around you and what other people are interested in and what they like to do. Diversity audits, formal assessments, measure employee and management attitudes, investigate the extent to which people are advantaged or disadvantaged with respect to hiring and promotions, review companies' diversity-related policies and procedures. So this is kind of like, if you're not rolling with the times and keeping up with everything, you can get yourself in trouble. So it's really important to, not just on diversity, on everything in business, is to make sure that it's up to date with the times and that you're following the laws and you have good, solid practices in place and that everyone is following them and on board with your expectations. Now, if you worked for a company who never did a diversity audit or didn't care about diversity and didn't really push the subject, you may come across situations where, it's run amok, and there's a lot of prejudice against the bigger ones I talked about earlier about the age, sex, all of that. So it's really important to make sure that a company is keeping up with the times, doing the audits, making sure that their expectations are met, and have a happy, healthy workplace. Diversity pairing is mentoring program. People of different cultural backgrounds, sexes, or races, ethnicities are paired together to know more about each other and to change stereotypical beliefs and attitudes. I think that's a great idea. If you have the ability, not all companies have the possibility of doing something like this. So if you do have the opportunity to pair with someone with a totally different cultural background or something, I think it's a great idea. Going back to church this morning, different background, different upbringing. We're both the same beliefs, but we have a different experience. So it's definitely neat. So that is that chapter. We are just zooming through tonight, so we may even get you out a little bit early. Chapter 16 is control. And as always, we're going to skip over the learning outcomes. So the control process. And anytime, again, if you have questions, just let me know. For some reason tonight, it's working properly and popping up if you write in the chat box. So let me know if you have any questions. Control process standards. Basic control process begins with the establishment of clear standards of performance. And, you know, just like when we were talking on the last chapter, you have to set those expectations and make sure that they're clear, concise. And this is another point. Whenever you're setting standards, you need to make sure you're going through auditing and making sure that it's up to date and everyone is following the expectation. Good standards enable goal achievement. Companies determine standards by listening to customers' comments, complaints, and suggestions. We're going right back to that feedback. And so it seems to be a common theme where you're always looking for that feedback and you're always developing and evolving and willing to change. Benchmarking, identifying outstanding practices, processes, and standards in other companies and adapting to them. Corrective action involves identifying performance deviations, analyze those deviations, and develop and implement program to correct them. So if something's going wrong, you're going to sit down and talk about it. You're going to set up a goal, and this is how we're going to get to the goal to improve the issue. Dynamic cybernetic process. Cybernetic is process of steering or keeping on course. Entire process is repeated again in an endless feedback loop to maintain performance levels. So you set the standards, and here's the exhibit. You measure performance, compare with standards, identify deviations, analyze deviations, develop and implement program for the corrective action, and yes, start it all over again. You measure the performance, compare, and you see how what it talks about in that previous page, how it's just an endless cycle on a loop. Feedback control, concurrent control, feed forward control. So feedback control gathers information about performance deviances after they occur. It's used to correct or prevent performance deficiencies. Concurrent control gathers information about performance deficiencies as they occur, eliminates the delay between performance and feedback about the performance. Feed forward control gathers information about performance deficiencies before they occur, to prevent or minimize performance deficiencies before they happen. So feedback is after, concurrent is during, and feed forward is before. Control isn't always worthwhile or possible. Control loss occurs when behavior and work procedures do not conform to standards. Careful assessments of regulation costs determine whether control is worthwhile. Cybernetic feasibility, extent to which it is possible to implement each step in control process. And there's the different control methods. Successful companies find balance that comes from doing 3 or 4 things right. Balanced scorecard approach to control, budget, cash flows, and economic values added, customer defections, waste, and pollution. Measurement of organizational performance and finance, customers, internal operations, innovation, and learning. This is part of the balanced scorecard. It forces managers to set specific goals and measure performance, minimizes the chance of suboptimization, performance improvement in one part of the organization at the expense of decreased performance in another part. Financial and customer perspective, controlling financial performance focuses on accounting tools, cash flow analysis, balance sheets, income statements, financial ratios, and budgets. Economic value added, the EVA, amount of which company profits exceed the cost of capital in a given year. This is probably one of my least favorite chapters to cover. I just feel like it's really dry, but it's here and we got to cover it. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of examples for this chapter, so it's a whole lot of reading. So I apologize for all the boring lecture during this chapter. Financial and customer perspective. Controlling customer defections have a great effect on profits. Performance in which companies identify which customers are likely to leave, measure the rate at which they are leaving. The only thing I can do in this chapter to help you out is to hopefully go through it quickly and get you on your way. Quality is defined, this is internal perspective. Quality is defined and measured in 3 ways: excellence, value, and conformance to expectations. Way in which a company defines quality affects methods and measures that workers use to control quality. And then here's the advantages and disadvantages of different measures of quality. So you can look back on that if you have questions. The advantages: promotes clear organizational vision. Disadvantage: provides little practical guidance for managers. You can look at that. It's provided in the quality measure of excellence, value, conformance to expectations. Innovation and learning perspective involves controlling waste and pollution, strategies for waste prevention and reduction, good housekeeping, material product substitution, process modification, and that's the chapter. And that's kind of why it's one of the more boring chapters. Luckily, it's not too long. So that pretty much wraps up this week. 42 minutes in, kind of a fast talker. We covered all the assignments. We talked about the quizzes. I think I have all of week 3 open. I'll check that. I will grade papers within the next 24 hours. I have all of the previous week graded up here, week 1. So if you have something that is showing a 0 and you turned it in, get with me. I did have a couple of people who didn't do something, and I reached out to them, but I think I got everybody else in. I'll grade week 2 here soon. This week on Tuesday, you have your discussion 3.1 due. Wednesdays, nothing due. Thursday, 2 peer posts. Friday, your live lecture submission if you're not one of these 11 people here tonight. Let's see what kind of questions we got. I don't know if it's brought to your attention or not, but the due dates on the week 2 assignment is March 11th. It probably should be, I'm not going to change the date. What they're saying is the week 2 assignments are showing March 11th. When I make a mistake like that, I'm going to give whatever is in benefit for you guys. So I'm guessing, let me look at a calendar. Hold on. I'm guessing March 11th, when I was looking at my calendar, is next week. So the assignments that are due tomorrow or today, March 4th, I must have put the March 11th on there when I was looking at my calendar because of the month change. So I'm not going to change. So there's 2 assignments and 2 quizzes that are correct, and the rest of it's wrong. I'm not going to change what's wrong. I would greatly appreciate it if you could get it in there so I could get it graded. But if you're going off the March 11th due date and you don't get it in there until the 11th, I'm not going to penalize you for something that I caused an error on. So it is what it is. Does that make sense to everybody? So if it says March 11th, we're going to go with that. I'm not going to go in and change the date now. But I would really appreciate it if you did update that or get that homework in. Any more questions from you guys? We have the group chat up. Let's see. And I can't tell if anyone's typing or anything, so I'm just trying to wait to see if something else pops up. I think that's pretty much it. I'll go through tonight. All of week 3 is due on the 11th. So I'll go through and check all the dates. So this is your fair warning. Week 3, if I have whatever date in there, it's all going to be due the 11th. Week 2, if it says the 11th, it says the 11th. But I can't grade it until it's done. So if you're wanting that grade, get it turned in. And I guess that's it. I guess you're free to go. I will stop recording and stay on for just a little bit. If you have questions, let me know.